This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
As the sun rose on Lexington, Massachusetts, on April 19, 1775, it warmed the backs of 6 companies of British light infantry, about 250 soldiers in all, marching swiftly west toward the center of town. Facing them on the town common were about 70 local militiamen. Dozens more men, many armed, milled around a tavern to the right. The British redcoats moved on to the green space, lining up against the locals. Officers shouted for the militia company to lay down their muskets and disperse. The Lexington men obeyed those demands halfway, dispersing, but keeping their weapons. A shot echoed through the village. Some of the British regulars responded by firing at the Lexington men. Then more. Some of the locals fired back, though without much effect. By the time the column's commanders restored order, 8 militiamen were dead or dying, and another 10 wounded. That was, contemporaries and historians agree, the start of the war which led to American independence. But that confrontation was not the first time that the King's soldiers and New England militia units had faced off against each other and fired their guns. The conflict in Massachusetts had grown more and more militarized since the previous September, which was when the bulk of the province had slipped out of the royal government's control. Lexington was simply where that conflict had turned deadly. The British soldiers did not have business in Lexington. They were not there to search the town, seize the militiamen's muskets, or arrest anyone. They did not stick around. As soon as the British commanders got their regulars back in line, they ordered the column to continue marching west. Lexington was just one of the towns on the road to Concord, the goal of that march. Those light infantry companies had come so quickly into Lexington because the lieutenant colonel in charge of the mission had ordered them to march with all expedition to seize the 2 bridges on different roads beyond Concord, while he followed with more troops. His plan depended on holding those bridges in Concord, so search parties could safely cross them and search even farther into the countryside. Why had General Thomas Gage, commander of the British Army in North America and royal governor of Massachusetts, sent his soldiers along that road in April 1775? The usual answer is that Gage knew rebellious provincials had collected military supplies in Concord and wanted to destroy that material. But Gage's superiors in London had ordered him first to arrest the political leaders of the resistance. Obviously, the supplies in Concord seemed important to General Gage. So what had the rebellious government collected there? Most histories speak of gunpowder, musket balls, flour, entrenching tools such as picks and shovels, and the other material that the British soldiers found that afternoon. Listing those items portrays the Massachusetts resistance as an underdog, not really prepared for war. That is how Alan French described the material in The Siege of Boston, published in 1911. The Massachusetts Committee of Supplies gathered together a few hundred spades and pickaxes, some muskets, 1,000 wooden mess bowls, 4,000 flints, and a small supply of peas and flour, a pitiful attempt to compete with the vast resources of Great Britain. Those were actually the low-value supplies that the provincials had not gotten around to moving or hiding by the time the regulars arrived. Contrast that description with what James Warren of Plymouth, an active member of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress, wrote from Concord to his wife Mercy on April 6, less than 2 weeks before the Army raid. This town is full of cannon, ammunition, stores, etc., and the Army long for them, and they want nothing but strength to induce an attempt on them. The people are ready and determined to defend this country inch by inch. Warren and his fellow activists did not see themselves as pitiful, but as determined and well-armed defenders. The provincials were building an army with an artillery force.